So my name is Tamara Vandersloot. I work for R2I, and the agenda for today is we'll just start with the introduction that I'll do myself, the introduction on who R2I is. Then Luc Foutier from IBM will be doing the presentation on Power10, and it's really geared towards customers that already have power systems today and how they can, what they need for prereqs and what are some of the differences between the current systems and the Power10. Then we'll talk about the next steps and conclusion and questions. And if you have any questions, you can always ask them in the chat during, and we have a moderator, Kim, and she'll be watching for them and will interrupt us if she thinks that it has to be asked within line. At the end, you can ask to open your mic so we can ask questions. So my name is Tamara Vandersloot. I work at R2I. I'm Vice President of Innovation. I've been working in the power systems. I was 29 years with IBM and now 8 years at R2I. We're a business partner really centered around power systems, do a lot of x86 and storage as well. So with us, we have Luc Foutier from IBM. He's also got more than 30 years of experience with power systems. He's been working also with across the board with AIX, Linux, and IBM. And Luc and I worked together tightly when we were both at IBM. So a little introduction on who R2I is for those that don't know. So the R stands for resources. That's our primary. We want to be technical resources available to our customer base. We have probably the largest group of IBMI resources across Canada. Quite an extensive group on that. And like I said, we work as well quite a bit in x86 and we work in Linux and AIX. And the two I's stand for infrastructure. So we are a reseller of infrastructure, and integration, which is really, we use the word épartition in French, which really applies to our cloud. We have a large cloud environment. So we have 2 sites in Montreal, and we have 2 sites in Toronto as well. And we host power systems as well as x86 in our cloud. It could either be production or HA, or it can be backup as a service. And we also work with the large cloud providers as well if you need assistance in that. So a little bit who we are. We'll keep this sweet and short, but one of the differentiators of R2I is really our ISO certifications, or our certifications in general. So our base and our cloud and our services are all based on ISO certifications to ensure consistency and procedures and security for our customers. So we've got the 27001, 1718. We're one of the only cloud providers, I think, across Canada that have these kind of certifications. There's only a handful. And we last year we also got certified to run SAP was certified by SAP to be infrastructure as a service for SAP clients. So again, just a high level who we are. We talked about we sell IT infrastructure. That's really what our bread and butter is. We have our cloud computing as well. So as I mentioned, we have 4 different sites, and we offer cloud, and we have 4 different sites, and we can also offer you Azure and Amazon as well and assist with that. So the IT managed services means that we manage our own cloud, so we can also manage the servers for customers that we sell on-prem. Or so it's a full, you can, I call it a la carte. You can choose what services you want. So you can either be in our cloud or buy on-prem and have it managed or not have it managed. We also do digital transformation and application modernization. And largely what we mean by that is taking customers from where they are today on their legacy applications and sit down and discuss how they're going to move into the more modern. A good example is if you're moving from SAP, your traditional SAP moving towards HANA, we can look at the different modules and see what's appropriate, what should go into, what needs to go into the cloud, what can be on-prem if that's your choice, or if you want to run it with us, and how to do that migration. I also work a lot in artificial intelligence. We do a lot of services in that, helping customers build the roadmap. We sell GPU servers. We can sell HPC clusters and have a good, quite a large ecosystem in AI, including assisting customers getting the funding from the superclusters. We've done that with other customers where you can get 50% up to 50% of a project actually being funded by the government for some of these new technologies. We work with a lot of the large leaders in IT, so we work with IBM, which is what we're talking about today. We work with Dell, Lenovo, also SUSE, Red Hat. You can read the list here, but it's from servers to software to communication equipment. We're able to assist, and these are our leading ones. You want an idea of the kind of customers that we're working with. This is a list of the customers that we have. We have, of course, a lot more, but this is a list of the ones we're working with. We've got some that are in the US. We work with the federal government, which again requires certifications or to be on the appropriate list for that. So we have quite a broad list of customers. So I'll pass it on to Luke, who's going to talk to you about the roadmap to Power10 and what you need to be aware of. And it's simpler than you think. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you, Tamara. Let me just stop my video first to ensure that I don't have any problems with bandwidth. And now let's try to share my screen. You should see here. Let's start the presentation mode. So you should be all right now to see the presentation. So hello, my name is Luc Cloutier and welcome to this Power10 roadmap session. For those who don't know me, I have been with IBM for close to 35 years, actually, starting my career in Toronto at the support center, and now a brand specialist in Quebec for the last 20 years. Do not hesitate to ask any questions in the Q&A window. We have Kim that's going to be watching it and passing it over to us if needed. My agenda for today is that I'm going to start by telling you about the new functionality of our new Power10 servers. Then we'll look at the high-level characteristic of the different model, followed by the software, hardware prerequisite, some performance numbers to help you compare with your current system, and finally talk about the dynamic capacity that are now available on the scale out for the first time. So today, the risk of security incident and potential vulnerability is really higher than before, and it affects more and more companies. Close to us here in Quebec, just last spring, we had a college that was hit by a ransomware type of attack that logged their services right at the end of the semester for the student, impacting their final exam, their term paper submission. And even last week, they announced that some of their sensitive personal information about the employees and the students have been found on the dark web. When IDC asks organizations about their priorities, security is always at the top of the list. 30% say they're not satisfied with the security features of their servers. But system integrity has many facets, and it all starts with ongoing commitment to system design and development practice to prevent unauthorized program or users from modifying or gaining control of the system resource. From the ground up, Power systems are designed for security. We control all the components. Security is engineered into the processor, the hypervisor, the operating system, communication, application, and embedded cryptography to protect your data. At the application level, we have Power SC, which offers security features designed specifically to help companies comply with security-related governing requirements, including identity and access management, encryption hardware and software management, communication, security, and extensive event logging and reporting to help with intrusion detection. This commitment towards security for Power is reflected here in the National Vulnerability Database. We can see that Power VM, as well as IBM I and AIX operating system, are much less vulnerable to attacks than their competitors. Their numbers are minuscule compared to the other environment. Only 8 vulnerability for Power VM compared to over 1,000 for VMware. And look at AIX and IBM I compared to Linux. 39 and 448 vulnerabilities detected since their beginning versus over 8,000 for Linux. Imagine all the time that you save managing all these vulnerabilities on IBM I and AIX. And Power10 system protects sensitive data by leveraging the latest encryption capabilities in hybrid cloud environment. With the Power10 processor, we had full-scale automatic memory encryption. This new function will be very beneficial for containers, which are becoming more and more popular in the hybrid cloud. This completely transparent memory encryption is designed to simplify and support end-to-end security without affecting performance by taking advantage of the 4 accelerators that are crafted to each of the core of the Power10 servers. These accelerators are also used with popular cryptographic algorithms like AES, SHA-2, SHA-3, allowing it to run much faster on Power10 than it did on Power9. And this performance acceleration makes it possible to activate features such as IBM ASP encryption or logical volume encryption for AIX with very, very low performance overhead. And in order to prepare for the future quantum age, Power10 systems are designed to efficiently support future quantum cryptography technique, a fully homomorphic encryption, and in not distant futures, Archer will gain access to quantum computer, and they will use it to defeat server security. Quantum cryptography refers to the effort to identify algorithms resistant to attacks from classical and quantum computer. And homomorphic encryption refer to the encryption techniques that allow the system to perform work on encrypted data without decrypting it first. So Power10 will be ready for that. And as the world is about to deploy AI everywhere, the focus is increasingly turning into the execution of the model rather than the training that is done beforehand. It is now better to run the model where the data is located. To support this change, Power10 can run the model faster than previous servers thanks to the 4 matrix max accelerators, or we call them MMAs, that are attached to each core. MMAs offers an alternative to external servers with GPU where the data must be transferred. This reduces costs and greatly simplifies the execution of the model. This allows AI to access fresh data and benefits from enterprise quality of service, reliability, availability, security, and performance of the Power10 platform versus sending the data outside of the enterprise to get it analyzed. Python and major framework like TensorFlow, PyTorch, and XGBoost coming from the x86 or other platform will run on Power10 without any modification using the Open Neural Network Exchange model. This allows you to use common hardware for training of your model and executing the model on the enterprise server right beside your data. Memory failure is one of the major factors affecting system reliability. And with applications like SAP HANA, memory reliability becomes even more important. With Power10, instead of using industry standard DIMMs, IBM used its own memory DIMMs that we call differential DIMMs, which is DDIMMs basically, in order to increase their resiliency and their performance. This new architecture provides pair memory module to dynamically replace failed module, and it is designed to deliver 2 times the availability of the industry standard option. The new communication interface with the processors called OMI allow for a much bigger bandwidth than Power9, bandwidth of 2.4 times bigger than comparable Intel server. We also have transparent memory encryption that I talked before, and we have made available active memory mirroring on most of our scale-out model, a feature that was only available on our enterprise class server. Naturally, we still have our redundancy and our hot swap for all our fans and our power supply. We can lose up to the half of our power supply on the 4U model, and we will continue to run. Feature at the processor level to retry instructions in error or to try them again on another processor. And in the event of a permanent failure, the first data capture will allow the collection of relevant information for the support, and the server will continue to run with just that 1 core less. For memory, chip kill technology that protects memory DIMMs in the same way that RAID does for storage, including a hot spare. And finally, we have active memory mirroring available on the scale-out. This function makes it possible to have 2 copies of the hypervisor in case of a memory failure. All these innovation makes it possible to boost the power system to the first place in terms of unplanned downtime, and this for the 13th year in a row. In that survey that ITIC completed in March 21, ITIC analyzed 18 current systems and 12 operating systems at different levels for their reliability. As we see in the graph here, the report compares Intel server to Unix and RISC-based server and shows that IBM Power, whatever it's AIX or Linux, have the lowest downtime of all hardware and OS combination, less than 2 minutes of unplanned downtime per year. This contrasts really sharply with the solution that are offered by Dell, HP, and Oracle. And even more so with the white box types of server that we usually found in many clouds provider, and that we can see here with the red bar at the top. Even if all these numbers looks pretty low, the survey estimate that each minute of downtime can cost you about $5,000. Also, more than 9 out of 10 respondents who use Power Server recorded availability percentage of 4 or 5 nines. And only 1% of the customers said that the support was poor or not satisfactory. This really means more productivity and less stress for your critical application when they run on your own private cloud. Now, all this beautiful power technology is available whenever you own your own private cloud with a managed service provider like WEBIN'R2I or in the public cloud of IBM. This gives you a hybrid cloud environment comprised of compatible technologies to allow you to run your enterprise workload such as ACP, DB2, Oracle, IBM I, or OpenShift, whatever side by side on the same server on site or off site into the cloud, whatever it makes the most sense for you to use. And you only need to pay for the resource you use or need. So here's a nice family pictures of our Power10 servers. As you can see, the format is essentially the same as the previous server, but with a very good increase in the number of cores. The entry-level server on the top left, which goes up to 16 cores with 2 terabytes of memory. Our scale-out server on the top right, which can now have up to 48 cores and 8 terabytes of memory. Our intermediate 1050 with up to 96 cores now and 16 terabytes of memory. And finally, our 1080 enterprise server, which has been available since last year, that can go up to a 240 cores and 64 gigs of memory. So let's start with the scale out models, where we have 6 different servers, 2 and 3 systems of a 2 and 4U, of which one is available as a tower model. Then the slightly bigger server, the L model, mainly for Linux and OpenShift, and the S model, which can run all of the operating system without any restriction. You will notice that the H model that we had before for specific to SAP HANA on Power9 has disappeared, but we kept their function into our regular L model. This allows you now to use AIX on IBM I on these L models up to a maximum of 25% of the activated cores. Here's the first chart where we compare our 4U single socket 914 with the 1014. The changes are highlighted in green. You will notice that the 6-core processor is no longer available on the 1014. In fact, the 4-core Power10 processor does more CPW or RPerf than the 6-core Power9. We see that the performance increase in terms of core, higher gigahertz, higher bandwidth, PCI Gen 5 cards. So, you know, there's performance increase all across the board. Now, one thing to be just careful about is that you'll notice that there's a little bit fewer PCI cards available on this system. And each group of NVMe drive takes away a card slot. So if you have 16 NVMe drive in this server, you're only left with 3 PCI slots, but you can put in an expansion tower to have more cards. As all the Power10, it has main memory encryption, but it does not have active memory mirroring like the other scale outs have. Now here's the 2U, 2 sockets chart. The smaller 1022S with a max of 16 cores, and the regular 1022 with a max of 40 cores. The 1022 more than doubles the memory bandwidth. and now has access to 2 full expansion drawers, up to 10 PCI slots that are available if you have 2 processors installed. But if you choose to install just 1 processor, you'll only have half of those slots available. And again, each group of 8 NVMe drive will use up a slot. One thing to be careful about these servers is that these servers are 4-inch longer than our previous Power9 model. So here's a top view of the back of the server. So pay attention to the depth of your rack. It's possible that you may need to add a rack extender or decide not to install a cable management arm if you want to be able to close the door on the back of the rack. With the 1024, we can double the number of cores and the memory capacity to a sizable 48 cores and 8 TB coming in the 4th quarter. And again here, we more than double the memory bandwidth. 10 PCI slot, just like the other server, with a mix of Gen 4, Gen 5. And again, if only 1 processor is available, then you only have half of the slots. Now let's take a little closer look at the mid-range E1050. Really incredible performance in just a 4U factor. We double the number of cores available. You can now have up to 96 core in this server and up to 16 TB of memory. A few less processor option, but more core and higher gigahertz. We double the interconnect between the processors to reduce hops between the cores and improve the performance. And we nearly double the memory bandwidth. We kept the same number of cards of the Power9 and with a mix of Gen 4 and Gen 5 cards. Last but not least, the E1080 systems with the same modular design that we had with the Power9 that can go up to 240 cores and 64 TB of memory. On these systems, all the 8 slots are PCIe Gen 5 capable. There's a lot of RAS that are now available on the scale-out model, but the E1080 still has some more. Dual redundant service processor, dual redundant clock, and a better SMP cable with fault isolation and hot repair. Here's a little bit better details on the Power10 and each of the processors that are available, options, the memory, and the memory bandwidth. So let's look at the OS support and the performance. Kim, did you have any questions yet so far?
No question for now.
Perfect. That means I was clear. All right. So let's look at this slide. It shows the current and planned support for AIX and IBM I, Linux, and Red Hat OpenShift for the Power10 server. AIX version 7.1 and up to 7.2 and 7.3 are supported on Power10. But you will need to be at 7.3 TL0 SP1 if you want to leverage the full capabilities of Power10. As 7.1 and 7.2 will run in P8 and P9 mode. IBM customer will need to say bye-bye to V7R1 and V7R2, which will not be supported on Power10. But 7.3 TR1, 7.4 TR5, and the just released 7.5 will be good. Minimum for the Red Hat 8.4 and up, and SLES 12 and up will be okay. And if you're planning to run container with OpenShift, then you'll need OpenShift Container Platform 4.10. ARDHMC requirements. Only the newer Power8-based HMCs will support the Power10, so no x86-based HMCs, the CR7 and previous. But you can still run the virtual HMC, which is still a much valid option if you want to run it on a VMware on x86. Version 10 of the HMC can connect to Power8, Power9, and Power10 server, but you want to be careful of the firmware level that you have currently installing the server to ensure compatibility.
Luc, I have one question. What is the availability or the delivery like on both the servers and on the HMC? Is there anything customers have to be concerned about, considering the supply chain issues that we're having worldwide?
Right. Right now, for the Power10 and Power9 server, we don't have per se a problem with delivery. It's pretty much standard delivery, 3 or 4 weeks. We do have sometimes issues with some cards or some disk. And usually what happens, we get notified of that every week. And actually it changes every week. And usually we can find alternative. So it never stopped. We never had any big delays into supplying issues for the Power9 and Power10.
And that's true for the HMC as well?
Yeah, a little less true. We do have a lot of people now that are configuring dual HMCs, so we're starting to have a little issues with HMCs and availabilities. What happens is that we ask customer to order one HMC physically, and the second one, if they need the second one, to opt for a virtual HMC. We haven't been obligated to not ship an HMC. We always been able to ship an HMC to a customer who required one, but we're a little bit constrained. So we ask customer not to order double if they can. All right.
Okay, thanks.
We've been pretty lucky on that and controlling the supply of all that. So on the scale-out model, we replaced our own flex service processor, or FSP, for a more standard eBMC. The overall function remains the same. HMC and Power VM stacks are the same with the same RAS goal. System management still goes through the HMC, but the ASMI screen is a little different. And this will give us access to industry standard APIs for people who wants to access the BMC. Here's a look at the P group for IBMI. The 4-core 1014 with a max of 64 gig is still a P05 group. The 8-core 1014 is a P10 group with no restrictions. And then we have all of the 1022s that are also P10, but they are restricted at 4-core max per LPAR. And all I/O must be virtualized through a VIO. No limits on the number of LPARs on that machine, but no single LPAR can have more than 4 core assigned. Moving to the 1024, you will still stay on the P20 group if you stay with the 12-core chip, but move to the P30 group if you want to access to the 16-core or 24-core chip that can go up to a max of 32 or 48 cores. Here are the CPW chart. Pretty impressive increase compared to previous generation. With these numbers, a 48-core 1024 with 947,000 CPW is almost the same number of CPW than a 60-core E980. But total CPW is not the main thing to look at. Here are some examples of the per core performance gain on popular configuration. Between 57 and 102% coming from Power9, and from 137 to 184% gain coming from Power8. Better core performance will help you reduce your software license for database, for applications such as Oracle, WebSphere, and even open source database such as Enterprise DB. Especially compared to x86 offering, we still have a big advantage. A 24-core S924 would only need 16 Power10 core. That's 8 fewer licenses to maintain, or saving if you need to purchase new license because of growth. Now we can see here the equivalent RPerf table that shows the SMT8 base RPerf results. We can have the complete list of RPerf in the Power Performance Report that's available on the web if you're looking for SMT4 or SMT2, but the same type of gain, the same as IBMI. Now, if we look at the E950 versus E1050, the 48-core, we can see a 39% more performance on these systems. So a 35-core P10 will easily replace the 48-core P9. That is 13 licenses less than the previous model. Containers are becoming more and more popular, and enterprise class container and enterprise container software is not cheap. Having better performance with fewer core will bring tangible benefit. Compared to Intel, with its 3.5 times better per core performance, Power can bring the cost of a containerized solution down by 57% over 3 years. And when we compare Power system to 86, we always have to compare apples to apple. All new Power server comes with a Power VM Enterprise hypervisor license with no extra cost. You just need to cover the maintenance. In the x86 market, the server and the virtualization providers are not the same company. Not only do you need to have the VMware cost to compare, but also our performance figures have been calculating, including the virtualization layer, while this is not the case with Intel server. So now let's talk about flexible consumption on the scale-out models. Power10 brings capacity on demand to the scale-out model. From model 1022 to 1024, no need to activate all the cores on the system. You can start off with only half of them activated and wait later as needed to activate the rest. You can install more processor to gain access to more PCI slots without the need to completely pay for them yet. And these activation can be done live and assigned to your LPARs without the need to bring the server down. You can also run these server in a true consumption model in your own private pool. No monthly fee, no need to commit to any level of minimal consumption like what you often see in the public cloud. You decide on the base capacity you want to buy up front in a CapEx mode, and all the rest will be paid on the per minute utilization based in an OpEx model. And you only pay for actual real CPU percentage utilization. You can assign all the cores of the server to an LPAR, but only pay when they are actually in use. By analyzing your current server, lab services can actually help you determine what is the perfect ratio of base versus pay-per-use capacity to lower your total cost of ownership.
Luc, do you know for the usage, is that based on an average of the day or an average of an hour? Do you know?
Yes, it's an average of a minute.
Oh, average of a minute. Okay. Thanks.
So every minute we look at the utilization of the server. So let's say that you have 5 base processor that are paid for. Then you use 5 cores for that 1 minute. You don't pay anything. Next minute, you go to 6 core, you pay for 1 minute of processor for that 1 core. You go back to 4 after that, you don't pay anything. So it's really per utilization of the system.
Thanks.
Okay, no problem. We can put multiple servers together in one pool of servers and have them share these base activations together. This way, unused capacity resource on one server can be leveraged automatically on the other server. You only need to pay extra minute when the sum of all the base resources have been leveraged. IBM Power gives you the flexibility to run your workloads, how and where it makes sense to do. The same way you have done for years on dedicated server, in your own hybrid infrastructure where you have your own private cloud and dynamic capacity and pay only for what you use, or totally in the cloud in a complete consumption model. You choose what you want to do. And now with Power10, we have standardized our support offering with IBM Power Expert Care. It is a simplified method to select services and support for Power server at the time of purchase. This table summarizes the service and support for the base warranty support in each of the service tier that we have. It is designed to simplify the support approach for Power server with simple, straightforward pricing and selection of services. Power Expert Care Premium is designed to maximize product resiliency and reliability. Before it was just offered on our enterprise class system. Premium service enables faster and more consistent access to IBM specialists so that you can expedite issue resolution and optimize your IT staff. The technical account manager is a critical product-based support role that will serve as your primary contact for support issue, delivering you partnership and direct engagement on high priority support cases. So there you go. In summary, responds faster to your business need, protect your data everywhere, and maximize your availability with our IBM Power10 server. Thanks. And that's pretty much what I have.
Perfect. Thank you a lot, Luke. And please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them, or ask them in the chat, or even raise your hand and you'll be unmuted. So I'll do the last part of the. All right, so for the next steps and the conclusion, this is just a little bit of an example of what our proven processes are. So whether you're buying on-prem or coming to our cloud, we have the same kind of technique that's documented. We have a project office that also watches and does the project management of the projects as we go forward to ensure the customer satisfaction. So it's a process that's been using for a while, and we've seen it's been very successful, all the way from the initial meetings to needs analysis, to validating the technical, to the project office and completion of the projects that we work on. Why is my down not working? So really working with R2I is about hitting the easy button. It's so that you can spend more time on what matters most to you and what you're good at and your core business. And the R, as I mentioned, for R2I stands about the resources, and you'll have access to a large pool of technical professionals when working with R2I. And we've got also the migrations we've done in the cloud. By the way, we've got some very large customers. One of them had well over 20 partitions, and we can bring a partition running on-prem at a client in less than an hour into the R2I cloud to running production in our cloud. Really is the time required for shutting down the partition and restarting the applications on our side. So we've got a proven process for that as well that's been working very well. The next steps, there's kind of two options that you have. If you want to, you can use this link. We'll be sending out the presentation. It's a no charge sizing that we do. This is an example, but we will tune it to whatever you have. We'll create a spreadsheet. We'll put in the CPW numbers. These actually have to be updated because it was extrapolated before the announcement. This is just an example. But we'll look at the cores, the memory, the storage. We'll look at the cores and the memory that you're actually using today, and that we think what you need, put in your growth numbers, and then we'll say this is what we think you're going to need on the Power10. So we can do this on multiple servers, multiple partitions, and then you can. So it's very useful. And if you're interested in having one of these, you can go to the link and you can apply. And this is a no charge sort of one-day service engagement that we can do the sizing and kind of give you an idea of what the P10 would look like if you wanted to move to one. The other option we have is which we've always had, is a 4-hour no charge performance review. And it's I'll work with one of your administrators. I've done performance, and Luke knows this from my time at IBM. It's one of my passions. I'm sort of a data performance junkie, so I love looking at performance data. So depending on what you have, if you don't have performance tools or any of this, sophisticated tools, we can simply use worksys status. I can show you what to look for. Show one of your admins how you can look at performance problems. If you have got, and by the way, everyone's got a tool called Performance Data Investigator. It's included with IBM I. It's a well-kept secret. It's an amazing tool with all the graphs, and you don't need anything extra to have those. Performance Navigator is another tool that I'm very familiar with. So depending on what you have, we can go through and have a look at, depending on your needs. If you say it's the runtime on my batch job, it's a 4-hour no charge service. And again, the link is there if you'd like to engage us to do something like that. And really, that's the conclusion of the webinar. If you have any questions, this is the time to raise your hand or put it in the chat.